I already have a logo. I don't need any of the other brand stuff because I have a logo. I can tell you right now that's absolutely not true, and I'm going to talk you through why that is. Hello and welcome to Engage and Thrive, also known as EAT, your coffee catch-up with me, your host Taelon, where we will go through common problems and hurdles that come up in business, marketing and advertising and try and demystify them. I know firsthand how complicated and confusing it can seem with all the different acronyms and all the things to do in business. So let me try and help you be better in business. First things first, let's start with grabbing a coffee. Okay, now I've got my coffee, let's dish the dirt. So before we get into it, I'm just going to cover off why I think that this statement is so important and why a logo is not the most important thing of your brand. Of course, having a logo, having an icon, having a graphic to represent your brand is really important, but there's so much more to it. And I think people underestimate how much more there is involved with the brand. And I've worked with quite a few startups that the first thing they've always said to me is, in my head, I've got an idea of what I want the logo to look like, and don't worry about the rest of the stuff. Like, we don't have budget for that, or we're not that evolved, we're not that established. We just need the logo. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, so what are you going to do with the logo? Where are you going to put it? How are you going to use it? What's going to happen for it? So I will say up front is we won't go in depth in this episode about style guides or brand guidelines or anything like that. We're just going to talk about things to consider for your brand and for your logo and the fact that there's more to your logo. Again, identifying acronyms up front. So there is an acronym that people would talk about when they're talking about your brand identity or your logo. So there's brand identity, BI, corporate identity, CI, and unique selling point, which is USP. Those are three that may come up when people are talking about brand and logos. Okay, as always, there's going to be 5 key takeaways for you to think about and use when you're evolving your brand. So number 1 is your audience. I have gone over and over this in episode 1, and I'm going to keep drumming this home as we go through things. Your audience is the most important part. And so when you're thinking about your logo or your brand and how you actually execute your brand, you need to think about how it resonates with your audience. And that can be everything from colors, styling, positioning, the actual graphic used, the icons that are used as a representation. So some people may have like a full name and then a shorter version, which is an icon, especially if you have an app or anything like that. Which kind of leads me into number 2, brand identity. So your brand identity really is your values, your mission, your personality, what your business and brand stand for. Like, what are your principles? Okay. And a lot of this will actually be pulled through from your business plan, or if you're a startup and you were pitching, you'd be talking about this in your elevator pitch, your 2 minutes why. But your personality is how I sound, how I feel, how I make you feel, how I interact with things. And again, like I said, this will go into more when we're doing style guides and brand guidelines, which kind of also leads me into number 3. Consistency and interaction. I may have mentioned this before, and if not, you will definitely hear me talk about this more often. I am obsessed with human interaction and customer experience. One of my biggest bugbears is a brand that has focused all their energy on the beginning interaction with a customer, patient, consumer, another business, and then they forget just as you're about to buy in, or if you're an ongoing customer, or retaining that customer and getting them to come back. It's like everyone puts so much energy into the beginning part and then forgets the next part. Your interactions and your consistency should be at every touch point I have about your brand. I should feel the same. You should sound the same. I should get the same emotion from you, whether it's a personal brand, a business, a group, whatever it is. So if it's an email, if it's an instant message, if it's a billboard, whatever it is, I want to feel and be the same about your brand. And that's not just going to come from a logo, because that's going to come into all the different parts of your color palette and your tone of voice. Again, more we'll go into when we do brand guidelines. Number 4, differentiate. So this is USP. What makes you different? What makes you stand out? And especially as against your competitors. So one of the things, again, that I hear common is, I like what my competitors are doing. Can we do the same but better? Okay, but how are we doing it better? Like, what actually makes us different? Because the different is what makes us better. The other thing is when people say, oh yeah, no one's doing the same as me, and you're not aware of your competitors. Again, there will be someone or something, even if you think of the likes of Uber and Netflix and whatever, like, yeah, they're different in their market, but what they started against, and Airbnb, right? They all started against finding the niche spot. Again, we can go into that in a whole different episode. So your USP and why you stand out really feeds into your brand, which isn't only your logo, and your brand identity. And that is something you should know. Again, if you only have 20 to 30 seconds to explain to someone what makes you different, what is your USP, you should be able to rattle that off straight away. And so should anyone else in your company. Which then goes me to number 5. Takes me to. Evolve and evaluate. So don't be afraid of trying and testing. If you create your brand or your logo and then you want to, you get customer feedback or you get interactions from the market and you realize it's not working, don't be afraid to evolve it. It can't just stay stale. If you think of the big brands like Nike, Starbucks, Apple, they've evolved so much in 20 years. And they keep evolving because they keep having different iterations, different feedback. If you are someone that's doing more global things, you really need to think about localization. And localization can mean a whole other kind of situation for your brand in terms of numbers or what things mean, or visual identity of things can mean something so different in different markets. But I think the biggest thing is that it's a living, breathing thing that you need to keep evolving and rolling with, and that's what makes you kind of like stay with it in the market, is kind of keeping up with the market, keeping up with your audience and who's actually buying now and who's your target audience. So those are your 5 things to take away about your brand, and that your brand is more than just your logo. But stay tuned and subscribe for the next episode of Engage and Thrive, Eat with Taelon, your host, and I'll see you next time.